Welcome back to Creative Thinkers. My name is Miguel Valenzuela, and today we have a special guest. This is JC Silva. He is a social media manager for Best in the Desert Racing. Thank you for coming, JC.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So I'm glad that you were able to come. We've talked prior to this a little bit, and I wanted to find a little bit more about yourself. Are you from El Paso? Are you local?
I am. I was born and raised in Ciudad Juarez when I was about 11 years old. Parents brought me over here to El Paso, so I feel like I'm from El Paso, but born in Ciudad Juarez. Mm-hmm.
Very nice. And from there, did you study in El Paso from that age forward?
Yeah, being in school in Juarez, I was in a private school. I was able to get some of the English courses, able to kind of help me, when I got to school here in El Paso. So it wasn't a hard transition. It was fairly easy, and then after that, picked it up, and from there, I've been enjoying El Paso all my entire life. So.
Very nice. And as far as creativity is concerned, I've learned a little bit about your background and who you are and what types of companies you work with and who you are sponsored by and whatnot. So was that a hard transition for you to get into companies like that? Did you start off with a big company, or did you start off fabricating different types of objects? How did you start?
It starts, I started small, obviously. Nobody is going to really take you seriously if you haven't really put your time in and have developed things that are useful for people, where customers can be happy with what you've been making. From my fabrication part of my business, from the media part of my business, it's been a transition that's taken years, but it doesn't feel like years because it's something that's been in my blood my entire life. It's a passion of mine to follow desert racing, and little by little I started doing coverage for desert racing, and through that coverage that I did on my own, a little slowly, but was able to get was able to get some contacts, and was able to get content out there that wasn't really a made for any type of business. It was just done for fun.
Things that you did for yourself.
Right. It's just fun. Captured me out there in the desert, captured my friends out there in the desert, and I started capturing some of the videos from some of the professional desert racers, going out to some of the racing events across the U.S., in Nevada, Arizona, California, things like that. So it really took some years to get into it. It didn't feel like years because I've just been enjoying it ever since. So
every step of the way, right?
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
But you had told me, you had mentioned that you fabricate actual vehicles. You also help to fabricate parts for vehicles. Did you start originally doing that, or did you start fabricating things like fences or something? I don't know what you did exactly.
Right. Yeah, from a sort of like a hobby, I started doing my own things for my own vehicle. The reason I started is because when I wanted to get some things done to my vehicle, come to find out, taking it to somebody to do some custom work is a lot of money. So I said, you know what, let me take my desire to do that. Let me buy myself a welder, buy myself some tools. And that's how I started, just buying myself a tool without knowing how to use it. Thank God for YouTube.
Well, that's true.
I went to YouTube University, and that's where I learned how to weld. And just out of the mere passion of wanting to know how to get it done. I learned how to do that as a hobby, did it in my garage for years, until the time came around to say, you know what, I think I have enough tools, I might be able to offer this as a business. Went ahead and pulled the trigger on that and started the business. And yeah, it wasn't, the beginning I wasn't able to do some of the things that I really wanted to do.
For the fabrication portion of vehicles.
Right. But I did have all the tools to cut, bend, weld metal. So I said, what would be a good way to start, improving my skills, getting some experience, using the tools, adding some tools to the shop. I started doing ironwork. So for the last maybe 4 or 5 years that I started, I would do ironwork for residential homes, offering my family first, do you want a gate?
It all started from one gate.
Do you want a gate? Can I make a gate for you? Can I make something like that? And really at the beginning, it wasn't really business because I would end up losing some money.
Right.
Just out of, lack of experience of giving quotes out or even knowing how to do it. I had to figure out. I would definitely take on the work and pretend that that I would know how to do it. And
So this all started from scratch?
right.
What got you to that point? What got you to the point where I'm now going to figure out, creatively thinking, of course, creative thinkers, but creatively thinking, what got you to that point where now I can transition from this to some other thing?
I'll make it real simple. That's it. And it's interesting how all that has driven me to do all this, but it's just the mere passion for desert racing. Desert racing, for some reason, has captured my attention since I was smaller. It has never left. It's just been hovering around my head ever since I was a kid, and I love it. And the reason why I got into buying some welders is because I was trying to get one of my trucks to be a desert racing vehicle. And in that, I said, well, if I want to do it myself and not having to pay thousands of dollars to get things done, I want to learn how to do that. So that's why I got a welder. That's how I started learning the process of fabricating, making something happen out of nothing. And from there, I haven't stopped. I've been learning and been improving my skills and gaining experience. And now recently is when I feel like I'm good at what I did. I was able to get some good experience what I do, and I wanted to kind of now start to inject the passion that I had for it into doing some of the work into off-road vehicles, desert racing. So it's just recently that my shop has taken over some of that realm of work, off-road racing, because it takes time for people to really trust you and say, well, I trust him. I want him to build me something for my truck.
So you now build trucks to a certain degree. Can you give us examples of what you've done?
Sure. It is building things to increase the performance, the function of a vehicle. So it's, there's a lot of companies that built bolt-on parts that'll improve your vehicle's performance and things like that. What I do is more of a custom fabrication, something that's really not off the shelf. A customer that really wants a certain look or a certain function on their vehicle.
And are we talking bumpers? Are we talking shock systems,
It could
roll
be
cages?
Bumpers, roll cages, suspension systems.
Wow.
Having to do with a truck. And specifically for me, if it has something to do with desert racing, that's what I would love the most, because it's just what interests me the most. And I've built suspension systems for race trucks that are racing right now. I built the suspension systems for vehicles that are just kind of out there using them recreationally. And it's not that I got that work because I did thousands of those and people are bringing it to me. People kind of just trusted me. They've seen some of the other work that I've done, and I'll take on the work and I'll research. I'll do everything I need to know about making that product, making it better, making it function well, and making injecting the quality that I seek for all the time. Sometimes I wish I didn't have that much.
Oh, you pay a lot of attention to detail.
Yes,
then?
I do, and it'll take me a while sometimes to get through it. But I think that's the only way that I gain that satisfaction, that I know that I took that time, and it was exactly how I kind of envisioned it, even though it took a little longer than most, I would say, maybe.
Right. But it's all custom made at the end of the day.
At the end of the day, it's all custom made. That's what some of the things that the customers enjoy. For example, I'll tell you, I built a bumper for a customer, and it was a really, really nice bumper on this vehicle.
And you design as well, then,
I designed it, yes. Some of this work I'll take. If they bring something into the shop and say, can you mimic, can you replicate this? I usually will encourage the customer, if it's something that you really like, buy it from the manufacturer. Because what we build here is just from scratch. And the price difference it really doesn't mean that it'll be less because you're getting a shop to do it. It's actually the opposite. If you want to replicate something, it'll cost a little bit more to replicate it than to actually get it from the manufacturer. So best bang for the buck in a custom shop would be is I'm getting something done that's unique to my vehicle, and it'll look exactly how I want it. So those are the benefits of taking some of those vehicles into my shop. It's a custom shop, so I built everything from scratch. So we'll draw it, design it, make some prints off of it, and once it's all ready, and then we'll start cutting metal, bending metal, welding together, and putting it together, piece by piece.
And do you consider your work art?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Can you explain?
It feels like art because you're looking at every single part that comes together. You're not, when you're building it, you do have the final product in mind, but then each part comes together in a way where you're looking for lines, you're looking for best fit, you're looking for clearances, there's so many things that you're looking for that you have to consider, and at the end, you really want that product to look good.
So there's always an aesthetic element to it.
Right, and there's a balance to it because you have to have the function that the customer may want or the product may yield, but you also want it to look good. So
absolutely.
And that's where I would take pride in what I do, is that I take really careful detail when I'm building it, step by step, and then once it's all said and done, it's complete. That's when the satisfaction kind of comes in. It's challenging sometimes to learn,
right?
But the challenging part about it is the fun part as well.
That's awesome.
Learning,
So you started by creating ironwork. From the ironwork, you continued on to start to making things like roll bars. Then you started making production pieces for individuals. And then what step came next?
The next step would be is, there's certain products that I think can be improved, or I think they can be done a little bit differently. Just knowing all the products that are out there, I said, well, if I can make that, with a little bit of different look to it, because even in products in off-road, demand kind of changes in design. What was cool looking maybe 4 years ago may not be so cool looking today. So
right.
You consider that, and everything you're making, you're kind of making it up to date. So it'll look good. It'll look good with the vehicles. It'll function good with the vehicles, and it'll be strong enough so it'll be there forever and do its job for a long time.
Yeah, and I think that's the point, right? To get the best quality material and put that into the actual piece itself, so that people are satisfied with what you make. So then you continue on to make more pieces. You're at the exact same time making films and shooting videos for yourself that you upload onto your Instagram. You were commenting. Tell us what the Instagram is.
So I run an Instagram page called Racer versus Racer, and what I've did, starting that page is just solely for the love of desert racing.
Okay.
The only thing that I would put up as posted, it wasn't something so I can put a selfie of myself or anything like that, because if somebody goes onto that IG page, there's absolutely no pictures of me there.
Okay.
All the posts are clips of desert racing, some from various desert racing organizations and different events. So what I started to do, and what I did, I said, well, there's a lot of them doing that, right? There's a lot of web pages sharing content of desert racers. What I enjoyed the most about watching a clip from desert racing is the moment that there's a kind of like a fight for position on the track, because desert racing is not a oval where you can have a spectatorship and watch the whole race, start and finish. Desert racing is different. It's not so much a spectator sport because of that reason, because you start off from point A and you go to point B, and it can be 1,000 miles late.
1,000 miles, really, across the desert.
Across the desert.
That in itself is impressive, I think.
Yeah, that's a racing that gives you so much more elements added into the mix compared to other types of racing that are really cool. The factors that are more challenging to the racer, and also all the scenic parts of a race, because you're moving through that racetrack and you're moving through scenery, throughout the whole entire race until you get to the finish line. So the challenging part in some of these video clips was, well, I want to know the competitive, where's the competitiveness? I want to see, when two racers are trying to get ahead of each other.
Right.
It's hard to capture that, out in the middle of nowhere in the desert. So
yeah, how are you going to know when both of them show up at the same place at the right time, right?
So when that's captured, that's probably my favorite part of a video clip, is when I see two vehicles out in the middle of nowhere. And they're trying to get ahead of each other. One of us trying to gain a track position. not necessarily that they're racing against each other, not drag racing, because these races have to do with time. So each racer in there is not really racing against another racer. You're racing against the clock.
I assume they start at different times.
They start at different times. So whoever at the end of the race, whoever has the best time making it to the finish line is the winner. So if somebody in the racetrack is a little slower than you up front, and you got a good time, you want them to move. You don't want them to be right in front of you. And obviously they're kicking up dirt, dust, everything. So it gets a little exhilarating when there's a vehicle behind another one and the one in the front doesn't know that there's somebody behind you. I mean, keep in mind, these are trucks that are making a lot of noise.
Right.
The horsepower is just yielding so much noise. And you got your helmet on and everything. You can't really see if there's somebody behind you. So the vehicles behind you, they're actually allowed to give you a little tap on the shoulder.
Oh, really?
So it's allowed. Don't get it.
I'm here.
Yeah, right. Don't get too aggressive because you might put somebody out of a race. But yeah, you can go behind somebody and let them know I'm here and give them a little bump. It's called a nerf. That's what they call it in desert racing. So.
And is it proper etiquette for the one in front to get out of the way?
Most definitely, because if you know that somebody's right behind you, what does that mean? It means that they're faster than you. And if they were able to catch up to you, that means that they're going faster than you. So yeah, definitely, good etiquette in desert racing to move out of the way. Does that happen all the time? No. Does the human factor kind of get the best of somebody?
Right.
At times? It does, and it gets exciting. So that little portion of desert racing is what I love the most. So my IG page started just specifically, and that's all it does is if I look at a desert racing videos and I see out of a 10-minute clip, I see 30 seconds where there's a vehicle and I'm in a battle trying to get across or trying to get past him, I'll capture that. I'll exert it from it, and then I'll share it. And in the sharing, I always give all the due credit. This video,
Right.
this little portion of the video came from, this individual, this company. So I think doing that got me, I think the way I enjoyed it, I think everybody else enjoys it the same. And some people have
Right.
asked me, who do you like for people to watch your page? Who are you looking for?
What type of people?
What type of people do you want people to look at your page? This is when I had a conversation with somebody about, hey, are you looking to maybe grow your page with assistance and following? No, I'm not looking for the numbers of followers. I'm looking for the people that enjoy it just as much as I do. And let the page grow organically if it does at all.
Right.
Because I never did this to gain any type of following.
And that organic growth then stemmed into who you're working with right now, which is actually being the videographer for?
Yes, that's correct. I think being able to, gain the attention of the people that were in desert racing, because there's nothing else that I was sharing. I wasn't sharing my face.
Right.
I mean, who would want to see my face anyway? So
handsome guy though, by the way.
Yeah. So I mean, I just shared some of the good parts about desert racing, and everybody that followed me enjoys it just as much as I do. And one of the questions that sometimes that came up one time is, well, I don't know who follows that page. There was some type of comment made, and so I don't know what type of people would follow your page. And I said, well, it's the type of people that are the same as me, that are real passionate about desert racing.
Right.
And I'm my biggest follower, my biggest fan, because I put all those video clips in there, and they're like a collection to me. I mean, I can go back there and, look at some other clips at any given time, and the same at others. The others can go in there and see some of the content that I've collected in there and share it themselves if they want. I mean, every single clip in there has its due credit. There's nothing there that's being used with no permission. So I think gaining some of the support from the people that really love desert racing, which would be the racers,
right,
the teams, and I think that had a lot to do with me being able to get a chance at getting into the desert racing arena in the media industry, and it's been a blessing for me, being able to now be inside the media arena of desert racing.
So you are now actually the guy behind the camera shooting the footage that you used to put on your Instagram page, and now you're creating it.
Correct.
Very good.
So it's been fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool. Is there something else that you are going to get into in the future? Something that is coming up? Maybe a different business venture, since you're into so many different business ventures?
I think I've gone to where, as a, I like to consider myself an entrepreneur, within my limits. Obviously, I had a successful career in corporate America before I started all this, and it came a point in my life where I said, well, I'm not going to live forever. I enjoy what I did in corporate America. I enjoyed it very much, but I'm not going to be here forever.
Right.
So I decided to make some of those changes and kind of leave that behind me, and then start this. It was a transition that wasn't easy. But I knew that and it was never going to come easy. So it's either I start now, go through all those motions, and try to wiggle my way into what I really love doing. Metal fabrication is a passion of mine. That was my hobby. That's how I started learning how to weld. Desert racing is my also my other passion, and which that one put me in front of the media business of it. And now I am the social media manager for Best in the Desert. Best in the Desert is the biggest desert racing association in the United States. They hold about 10 venues a year, some of the biggest desert racing events that go on here in the United States. One of them including a race that goes from Las Vegas all the way to Reno, Nevada. That race is considered one of the biggest, longest races in the U.S. For desert racing. It depends on the mileage, but this can be roughly anywhere from 700, 800 miles.
Is that in one day?
That can be in one day going into the next day.
Wow.
These trucks are fast, so once they leave the green flag. I mean, they go as fast as they can to get through the whole desert and get to Reno. So yeah, they can take over a day. There's limitations to it too as well. So. If you don't make it into the finish line within a certain amount time, then you're disqualified.
Right.
So you really want to get to that finish line. And getting to the finish line is also another victory on its own.
Right.
It's not just going and
not being number one.
Not being number one.
Just making it.
Not being number one is the cherry on top of everything.
Right.
Or being on the podium. Being number one is the cherry on top. Being on the podium is a victory. Finishing the race is a victory as well. Because these are grueling races that these trucks take a real beating. So it doesn't really come down to just driver skill. It comes down to what's the entire team doing to make sure that the vehicle makes it to the finish line. And then there's teams that have helicopters that will chase these vehicles across the
700 miles.
Correct.
Wow.
They'll chase them the whole entire way. If anything happens, they can land, provide some parts, or provide some transportation if somebody got hurt, or capture footage for their sponsors, or television. There's the Best in the Desert right now is working with MOV TV and a television series for the races, and this is a new deal that they got with them this year. So MOV TV is going to be airing some of these races in their channel. I don't know the details of when or what.
Right.
But it's been really interesting to see the growth in desert racing. Since I've been loving it since I was small, and I'm just really blown away of where it's gotten from then to now.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've always been into that type of racing as well. I used to not race motorcycles, but ride motorcycles when I was young out in the desert. So I really love that whole aspect of it, which for me was a big kind of way for me to open my mind. As far as that's concerned, do you think that kind of going through all of these steps at some point allowed you to be or become a more creative individual?
Definitely. Having that freedom to be able to now, coming from corporate America, you had to be a team player. You got to be creative on how to get things done. And I think I took a little bit of that experience with me into it. And then now having a little bit more freedom into executing some of these ideas, it's really fun, because now I know that the effort put behind an idea is one part. The effort putting in executing that idea is the second part, which is by far the hardest part about any ideas that you execute. But then when that execution turns into something successful, something good, I mean, the satisfaction of it is just, I can't describe it. It's just, it's something that you, uh, I don't know. It's just an accomplishment. So
Right.
you get a point to where you actually accomplished it, and you look back and say, well, I didn't know that I could accomplish this, and now I did. So it gives you confidence to take on some of the next things that come with growing the businesses that I have now. And by honesty, I think I'm in the two businesses that I'm going to take with me to my grave. That's how much I enjoy them, and it took me years to line myself up to be into these two things, and I'm running with them, until the end. So where will that take me? I don't know yet.
Yeah, what's in the future? I think you mentioned something about building some maybe camping gear or something like that. Maybe another venture that you might venture into. Are you going to continue with these two ventures and then kind of put that on top just for fun?
Yes, yeah. I like to stay busy. It keeps the mind healthy.
Absolutely.
Being busy, and they're two of my passions. Whether one of them will take off more than the other ones, it'll probably consume most of my time, and I'll have to adjust that at the future, maybe. But because desert racing is just in my blood, both of my businesses are going to be kind of related to each other.
Absolutely.
So the differences now that I think are the biggest changes in the way I do my business as far as metal fabrication is that I'm now going to be researching the market in desert racing and in overlanding. Overlanding is it's a sort of like products that you use to go camping, but not just go camping somewhere. Go camping, but take everything mobile. You're able to, usually a four-wheel drive vehicle that they use. You have a tent on top. You'll have a stove. You got everything that you need in order for you to be camping in the middle of nowhere and being able to move around the desert or the terrain.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what overlanding, which I love. I love desert racing. So some of the products I'll be creating in the future that I have not yet disclosed, some of those ideas, because I have to find out which one's the right one.
Right.
I'm going to start with one. And it's going to be basically a merge between overlanding and desert racing. So it'll be a hybrid version of some of those products. And I think they'll be received well by the desert racing community because who doesn't like camping?
Yeah.
And some of the people that are camping, hey, who doesn't like desert racing out in the desert where we like to be as well?
That's exactly right. And so far, so good. So how can people get a hold of you or maybe get connected with you? Do you have a phone number? Do you have a Instagram or a Facebook? Do you want to share that with us?
Yeah, sure. My Instagram account is Racer versus Racer, which is there's an underscore in between the verses, so Racer underscore VS underscore Racer. That's why I share all my content in desert racing.
Okay.
Facebook's the same without the underscore, so it's Racer versus Racer at Facebook. And those are two pages that I share my favorite parts of desert racing. So any clip that I find out there that has that excitement of being in the middle desert, and that footage has a vehicle behind another one, and one of them was trying to get past the other one. That's the excitement about it, and then that's all I share. So if you like desert racing and you want to see some of the exciting parts about desert racing, it's definitely worth going in there and taking a peek at my IG page or my Facebook page.
Very nice. Well, I want to thank you for joining us and being here for this 30-minute show so we could talk a little bit about yourself. And I wanted to thank the audience for tuning in and watching this show. I want to encourage everybody to stay creative, of course, every time, every show, and keep kind of pushing yourselves up in any way that you guys can. Thank you very much.